Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest episode of the TechForge podcast here on CrossForge Gaming. I am Dynamo Ned, better known as Ned to everyone on the Twitch stream. Most of the time you'll find me on Tuesday evenings playing Fallout 4 or some other RPG. But tonight we're going to be talking about tech. We're going to be talking about hardware news. And joining me this evening is our TechForge regular, Hunter. Sadly, Jason could not be with us this evening due to family obligations. But Hunter, how's it going?
Going good.
Got anything new, interesting going on?
Oh, I have a new product to try out. Because my internet speed is not great. The current, I can't pick it up, and the current thing that I have, well, can't really pick it up. It's a Nighthawk USB Wi-Fi adapter, and it's a really wide one that should be well versed to pick up the signal, but while playing games, I'm lagging a lot, and it's not doing so good. I can't play Destiny 2 anymore because too much lag. I'm frame by framing, and it's just not worth it. So I think that it's the internet not reaching, even though the internet is in another room that's not too far from me. I think it might be the signal that's not strong enough. So I went to Micro Center, first time in ever going to Micro Center, one in Georgia, and picked up a different kind of router or a different kind of Wi-Fi adapter. I picked up the Asus. This is one that Linus Tech Tips was actually put on their video.
Okay.
PCIe card that has a component that connects to it, and you can either put it on a surface or even has magnets to put it on the side of your PC. PCIe is actually faster than USB because USB goes through the USB 3 or USB 2 speed standard, but PCIe, because it hooks onto your motherboard, has a faster bandwidth, faster pickup speed than outside the computer. So I've read a lot of reviews on this, and this was really good, and is also discounted at Micro Center. So I'm going to try this out soon and see if I can actually play games without lag. Hopefully. If not, then it's just something else that's not working, and I'll have to figure something else for a solution.
All right. Well, hey, if it fixes your Wi-Fi problem, then more power to you.
Yeah.
I realize not everyone has the ability to play on a wired connection, so...
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't.
Yeah, I completely understand. Back before I moved to my apartment here, was in an old house that couldn't run Cat5 cable through. So gaming on Wi-Fi, I understand it can be tedious at times.
Mm-hmm.
But as for me, I was talking about this a little bit before the show, but I've been working on a little project I found. I've got my Raspberry Pi here in this case. I've had it connected to my TV for some time, and for basic everyday things, that works pretty well. But I wanted to find a way to make it more portable, so I found this Motorola Atrix lap dock that was originally designed for the Motorola Atrix phone. And Basically all it is a screen and a battery and a USB hub. But it has these connectors on the back for micro USB and mini micro HDMI right there.
Mm.
And so it's going to take a little work, but I'm going to have to splice together a cable to connect to those connectors and then connect them back to my Raspberry Pi. I've kind of proof of concepted it and got it to work with the screen here on the laptop. As far as the HDMI is concerned, the problem is because this is powered by a micro USB adapter, and this only has the one micro B, I'm going to have to split a cable to this micro USB to also connect to one of the USBs on the back of the Raspberry Pi so that I can send both power and data to the device. But once I do that, $60 laptop, because you can get these for $60 on eBay, literally everywhere, and then $35 for the Raspberry Pi. Put them together, you basically have a $100 laptop that can run. I've got it currently running Raspbian with the Pixel desktop, and it'll do pretty much all your everyday tasks. Now, it is limited by the fact it has a gig of RAM, but other than that, works fine.
Is there an adapter that you can use for to go from the Raspberry Pi to the micro B?
Well, there is, and I've got adapters for that. The problem is, since there's only one connection on the laptop, and I'm going to need at least two on the Raspberry Pi, I'm going to have to get a splitter for that so that I can plug a USB-A plug into here while also powering a micro B plug into here for power. So it can actually use the battery in the laptop.
Well, that'd be cool. You'll have to show everybody that when you get it working.
Indeed, indeed. So we got, we're going to try to kind of make the show run a little bit leaner from here on out. We've taken in some feedback from some of the other CFG guys and some of the people who viewed the videos that we've put up over the last few days, which, by the way, that's not how it's going to work in the future. We're going to try to get these up once a week. We're recording this on Wednesday, July the 11th. We're hoping to have this up by tomorrow. So just letting you know, it's not going to be, TechForge every day like it has been. No, this is going to be a once-a-week show that we're planning to come out on Thursdays. So, but this week, we do have some interesting tech news, some of which is extremely recent. Speaking of which, our very first topic we have here on the docket today is Microsoft's new Surface Go. Now, this has been rumored for a while. Tom's Hardware came out with a news article about rumors about a Microsoft Surface Lite, as the rumored name was at the time. The rumor, which turned out to be true, was that it would be a 10-inch Microsoft Surface with an 1800 by 1200 display, weigh approximately 1.2 pounds, have USB Type-C as well as micro SD ports, and come in 3 different configurations. A 4 gig of RAM, 64 gigabyte storage model, an 8 gig, 128 gigabyte RAM model, and an 8 gig, 256 gigabyte model. I just said 128 gigabyte of RAM, didn't I? 108 gigs of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, and then 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. Also, those last two will come in LTE models, meaning that they will be able to function on 4G wireless.
That'll be awesome.
So when Microsoft posted the Surface Go available for sale yesterday, July the 10th, most of these things turned out to be correct. It is indeed a 10-inch Surface tablet. They call it a laptop to tablet. Here, I'll just screen share the actual Microsoft site. So here we go. You can see this pretty typical for Microsoft. They call it 10 inches of laptop to tablet flexibility. From full-feature desktop software to mobile apps, Surface Go just gets the job done. With optional LTE and starting at 1.15 pounds, it is by your side wherever your job takes you. So you'll also notice they've got pictured there the type cover and the Microsoft Surface mouse. So yay that. Full laptop on the go, a desktop workstation at the office. Apparently, they're also coming out with a companion product called the Surface Dock, which allows you to connect it to multiple external monitors. Comes with Office 365.
They've had tablets like this, but not at... I think the previous Surface tablet didn't have a kickstand. You had to buy a case that had a kickstand and a keyboard. Although I think there was a version with the keyboard. But
yeah,
this is like an evolution of all the previous Surface tablets because they didn't have all these specs to it. They definitely didn't have LTE. That is a really good feature of it. Because if you need to have internet capability, you don't have to go to somewhere that has a Wi-Fi and connect to Wi-Fi. You can just be anywhere.
right.
Like having your phone.
This is the key thing I wanted to look at here. I've got the tech specs right here. And so notice they say up to 9 hours of battery life. The up to an i5, but the entry-level model has the Pentium Gold processor 4415Y, which Y is their ultra-low power models. Yeah. And so here we go.
And 8 gigs of RAM, that's really good for I don't know if I've seen any other... I haven't seen any other tablet that has... I'm not sure about Apple, but I did see an article that it's trying to compete with Apple tablets. Apple tablets, especially on price for this versus the Apple tablet, the iPad, it's a really competitive price. And
I would tend to agree there. In particular, the things to note, the 10-inch Pixel Sense display with the 1800 by 1200 resolution. Notice they call out the PPI, the pixels per inch, which is 217. That should put it roughly on par with the iPad Retina display, if I remember right. Interesting, they decided to keep the 3:2 aspect ratio instead of going 16:9 like most tablet makers.
Yeah.
So it's going to come with 4 or 8 gigabytes of RAM, depending on which you choose. It does come with Windows 10 Pro out of the box, but it is configurable to S mode. For those not as familiar with it, Windows 10 S mode is basically the mode where you can only purchase things from the Windows Store. It will not run traditional apps, but it looks like it comes configured out of the box with Windows 10 Pro. So that means you can download all your traditional Windows programs.
Yeah, comparing the Surface tablet, this Surface tablet, Surface Go, with even the 10.5-inch iPad, the 64 gig storage space, Wi-Fi is $649. The 256 model is $799. According to Microsoft's website, the Surface Go is starting at $399, which
yeah. For a 4 gigabyte, 64 gig storage, 4 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gigs of storage, 9-hour battery life, and full Windows 10 accessibility for $399.
Compare that to $649 of the iPad's 64 gig storage Wi-Fi. That's like cut in half. And then for comparing when we compare the 8 gig RAM, 128 gig LTE to the iPad, comparatively, they don't have a 128 gig unless you're talking about the regular iPad. The 128 gig plus Wi-Fi plus cellular is costing $559. If that one's costing like 400 something, of course it's going to be, because Apple has a premium of everything that they sell. It's going to be very, very competitive price. Just trying to think of a different word, but competitive price.
And from what I can tell here, it's really looking like Microsoft is attempting to sell this as a productivity device versus, the iPad is mostly a media consumption device. If we're being really honest, yes, you can do work on it. And yes, I know there are lots of work cases where an iPad can be used as a productivity device. But I mean, Microsoft knows their market. They know that they dominate in the enterprise field, and so they're attempting to market the Surface Go for business.
Right. And having a kickstand already beats iPad. iPad doesn't have a kickstand built in.
Right.
This one looks like it has a kickstand built in, and the case, if it comes included with a keyboard case built into the price, then that already beats the iPad also, because those are separate add-ons that you go buy in a store or something. If they actually have this package, because it looks like on the website it's all together. The cover looks like a keyboard cover, but if they package it all together, then at that same price, whether it's $399 or a little bit more, it's still going to beat the signature cover. Okay, so the Surface Go signature cover, that's coming soon. Okay, so that's a separate item.
Yeah, they're probably going to sell those as accessories. I know they did that with the original Surface tablets.
Yeah. but it's still going to be cheaper than the iPad and a comparative. That's what I was thinking of, the comparative cover, because even the accessories for Apple is also at a premium price.
Right.
It's so much more. Like one comparison that I can tell you and our listeners is, in the old style of the Apple computers, a hard drive, a 60 gig hard drive for Apple, formatted for Apple, was like $150. And to compare that to like $60 for a Windows formatted machine, it's insane. I mean, I know the Linux format is a lot more extensive because it's on it's built on machine language, but still, comparing the prices between the Apple products and the non-Apple products, it's a lot. It's a lot to consider when buying an Apple product.
The Apple tax is very real.
Yeah.
That said, you generally do get a higher quality product, but you're going spec for spec. Of typically, PC is going to win at bang for your buck. The reason people buy Macs, though, is they're buying the name, they're buying the reliability, they're buying the service plan behind it.
They're also buying, you don't have to do anything for them. Basically, you don't have to think. You just buy it, and it does what you want. But with non-Apple products, you have so much customizability, and you can tinker with it yourself, and you can fix it yourself. Apple recently does not allow right to repair for anybody, and that's been a big thing with the iMac Pro, but that's off topic.
Yeah, I've seen those videos with Linus, and that whole situation is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah. We can talk about that another time.
Yeah, that could be a whole topic of discussion of right of repair, and just how many rights as the consumer do you have to actually tinker with your own hardware.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of do it yourself, AMD is pursuing new frontiers with their processors in that they licensed their Zen architecture to a Chinese company. Chinese designed, and I'm probably going to botch this, Diana processors based on AMD's Zen microarchitecture are beginning to surface from Chinese chip producer Hygon. So basically, what I understand happened is, so it is against U.S. law for Intel to license the x86 architecture to Chinese manufacturers. And that was done because there were so many unlicensed copies of x86 processors already coming from China. So apparently AMD had to go through some hoops to get their AMD EPYC series processors to license that technology to Hygon. According to this Tom's Hardware article that I'm basing this on, apparently the Diana processors are so similar to AMD's EPYC processors that Linux kernel developers are basically saying the only difference between them is vendor IDs and family serial numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The Linux maintainers simply ported over the EPYC support codes to the Diana processors, and note that they have successfully run the same patches on AMD's EPYC processors, implying little to no differentiation between the chips. And, all of this comes down to, we don't like to get political on here, but some of this is the impending trade war between U.S. and China. China for a very long time has lacked any native processor production. Most processor production is done in the, are we allowed to say the other China of Taiwan?
Yeah.
And so, and this article does mention the fact that the Obama administration actually blocked Intel from selling Xeon processors in China in 2015 because they were afraid that they were being used to fuel the country's nuclear programs. And so AMD, like I said, they had to go through some hoops to get this cross-licensing agreement approved, because for those not familiar, there's a weird history when it comes to x86. So Intel licensed AMD to make x86 processors. They also licensed another company called VIA to do the same thing, but VIA has not really been as major a player, at least in the consumer market, for quite some time. But when AMD started making processors that were actually in some ways better than Intel's own, Intel tried to revoke that licensing agreement. It went to court. It was ruled they couldn't do that. At that point, AMD kind of had to start reverse engineering what Intel had been doing. And right around the early 2000s, AMD took the x86 processor, which was based on a 32-bit instruction set, and extended that to a 64-bit instruction set, because they knew that we were reaching the limits of 32-bit processing. And so they created the x64 instruction set, which pretty much all modern processors use. Well, Intel basically licensed back x64 when their Itanium architecture for 64-bit didn't work or didn't sell well. And so AMD can license, it's one of those vagaries where AMD can license their things to Hygon because they own, what's the name of the, they own Tianjin Huangguang Advanced Technology Investment Company Limited, which I'm sure if our friend Bones was on, he is far more fluent in Chinese than I. He would probably say I butchered that. Anyway, AMD holds 51% of the stake in THATIC. That's the acronym, THATIC. They own 51%. So they're able to legally pass that along to Hygon, because Hygon only owns Tianjin Huangguang Holdings, which is the parent company of Hygon, only owns 49% of that venture. So they're technically not selling it to them. They're licensing it to one of their subsidiaries. Yeah, licensing agreements are weird. Anyway, regardless, in the next few years, we're likely to see China start producing Diana processors through Hygon that closely resemble AMD's EPYC and Zen-based CPUs. And since these are being produced solely for the Chinese market, you probably won't see any of them over here in the States. But hey, if you're in China, you can get yourself a new and different processor here in the next couple of years or so.
Mm-hmm.
So beyond that, there's also some other interesting things that are being done with AMD's Zen architecture. It's finally starting to move into the embedded space. Got an article here from a non-tech. Sapphire unveils the FS-FP5V, an AMD Ryzen embedded mini STX motherboard.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like this is going to be a 5.5-inch by 5.5-inch, roughly, motherboard that contains a Ryzen embedded V1000 APU. Featuring 2 to 4 cores with simultaneous multi-threading. So that means it's the equivalent of Intel's hyper-threading. Yep. So, and these are going to feature base frequencies from 2 gigahertz to 3.35 gigahertz, with boost frequencies of up to 3.8 gigahertz, which is way, way higher than we've seen previously in embedded CPUs.
Mm-hmm.
And will contain a Vega iGPU, much like the Ryzen 5 2400 and 2200G.
That'd be really interesting. This says Vega 3 to Vega 11. So the 4-core, 8-thread Vega 11. That's like having a high-end, like I guess a 2700G or a 2600G. Actually, it'd be 2700G.
Yeah, they've got a picture of the motherboard here. You'll notice that it's a soldered-on chip, that it's not in a socket. So this is going to be a soldered-on chip. So whichever one you get is going to be the one you get.
Yeah.
It uses laptop SODIMM memory.
It's like a video card for the die, because the die for a video card is soldered onto the board.
Right. You got the I/O back here. It's going to have, I believe, 4 USB 3.0 ports, an HDMI out, and of course an Ethernet port.
Yep, and it has one SATA port for, I guess, right, a hard drive or an optical drive. Looks like one of those is a micro SATA card slot, and is the other one that's like high above? Possibly so, that would be above it. Oh, that would be like an M.2 above it.
Yeah, I think what it is this lower one here is a M-SATA slot for, or a mini PCIe slot for, say, your Wi-Fi card.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is an M.2 for a M.2 NVMe drive. Or actually, it's probably SATA on this one, because
probably
I doubt you'd want to include an NVMe controller for something like this.
Yeah. So that would be good. That would be hard drive and Wi-Fi. And then I guess the one SATA port would be, if it's in a case that has a optical drive, it could have a DVD or Blu-ray drive. So that's basically like a miniature computer Blu-ray drive. So disk media or even online media kind of board.
Yeah, and so they're saying it can be outfitted with 2 DDR4 SODIMMs with up to 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. Okay, apparently it is a pair of M.2 slots. There's a 2280 slot, which is PCIe times 4, or 3.0 times 4,
That's
for an
NVMe.
SSD for the NVMe. So apparently it can handle an NVMe. That's nice to know.
Mm-hmm.
And an M.2 2242 slot for a Wi-Fi module, as well as 2 gigabit Ethernet ports. So they've got the I/O right here. Let me pop that on the screen again.
The PCIe 3 X4, it says basically NVMe or SATA is that port.
So that means you could probably choose between the two in the BIOS.
Yeah, you can. Well, it means that you can either hook in an NVMe drive or you M.2, or you hook in a SATA M.2. Depends on which one you want to have. I don't know if you can switch it over in the BIOS or it just picks it up. But yeah, I guess I'm not sure if you'd want to have, if it's like a media, if you have it as an actual computer, then I could see you'd want to have fast storage. If you have it as a media computer, then SATA would just be fine.
Right, and they have more of the tech specs down here. So you'll notice that there's several different options for which Ryzen embedded CPU you can get, and that also changes which Ryzen or Vega graphics GPU you get built in. There's even at the top tier, there's the Radeon Vega 11, which I believe it's not the same number of SPs, but it is technically being Vega 11. That's the same marketing name they've been used for the 2500 or 2400G. Was the Vega 11 GPU, with the Vega 8 being the 2200G. Now, like I said, the SP counts are not quite the same here, but regardless, a 4-core, 8-thread processor with Vega 11 graphics embedded on a device that's basically just under 6 inches by 6 inches, that's a lot of power to pack on a single board.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that is going to be something to keep an eye on. I don't know if that's going to be something that Sapphire or ASRock is going to be selling to the general public, or if it's going to be something more industrial focused. Most of the time, these embedded chips like this are intended for...
Oh, I see one. ASRock's first mini STX machine will be the Desk Mini.
Yeah. See, ASRock has been doing the Desk Mini.
Yeah.
But I don't see where... I think this is Sapphire's first foray into mini STX.
Yeah, because this is the Intel version with an H110 board. So that'd be nice if they do a Desk Mini with this STX board with the built-in APU. I'm definitely interested in who comes out with the to use the 4-core, 8-thread with Vega 11.
Right.
Because that's basically, that is the 2400G. The 2400G is 4-core, 8-thread with Vega 11.
Well, I mean, it being the embedded version, it's severely downclocked, but
Mm,
it also, uh, typically with these embedded GPUs, embedded CPUs, it's typically a cut down version of the architecture. I know with the previous generation embedded CPUs, they were based on the Bobcat and Jaguar cores,
yeah.
which were based on the same technology as the excavator cores
Mm,
that were in the GPUs or GPUs. I keep thinking GPUs. In the excavator cores that were in the FX, 8000 series. Uh, yeah, we had bulldozer, then pile driver, then excavator.
yeah. Do you think this would be for a console?
Uh,
It seems really underpowered.
I would doubt it. Most of the time for the consoles, I know last console cycle, AMD produced semi-custom solutions for those.
Right.
And so I could see these maybe being a basis, but given we already have rumors that Sony is looking to build Zen based CPUs and Navi based GPUs for the PS5,
Yeah.
I'm not sure this would be the appropriate device for that.
Right.
But still, 4 cores, 8 threads is nothing to sneeze at. The fact that 4 cores, 8 threads is now becoming something that we're seeing in the budget embedded space like this is
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
I'm definitely interested in seeing the benchmarks of these gaming and otherwise benchmarks, synthetic benchmarks, even even if they can do any kind of work intensive, not work intensive, but workstation style. Because if these are in the little desk minis, even for businesses, that would be pretty big,
Right.
especially if it's cheaper. Because those can even sit behind either, they could probably be mounted to a monitor, and then you have a bunch of space on your desk, and you have no computer that's hooked up on the right or left bottom of the desk. You have them all like the Intel NUC, mountable to a VESA mount monitor, and then it's pretty much whatever you want to do with it. You just hook up all the peripherals to the back of it.
Yeah, I'm looking here at Sapphire's catalog page for this device, and here's what they say about it. The new Sapphire FS-FP5V 5-inch by 5-inch small form factor embedded motherboard is based on the latest AMD Ryzen embedded V-series family APUs, which feature the industry-leading Vega GPU graphic combined with the high-performance Zen CPU core. Up to 4K displays can be supported in addition to dual-channel DDR4 3200, dual Ethernet controllers, and M.2 for Wi-Fi and SSD expansion. It's an ideal solution for high-resolution visual embedded applications like electronic gaming machines, medical imaging, interactive digital signage, thin clients, point-of-sale terminals, and
Yeah,
more.
point of sale terminals. That's another thing that I've seen. I've seen like the really small point of sale computers that would be good for that.
Yeah, I think like the solution I could see this really be using for the fact that it can fit 4K monitors. I could see it being used for, maybe in a doctor's office to,
Yeah.
take a look at digital x-rays, or
Mm.
maybe on a stock trading floor so that you could have 4K displays hooked up and you could, be looking at trades and options.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I remember back around the time I was about to graduate from college almost 10 years ago, back then it was a big deal that our business school had a workstation set up with 4 1080p displays for doing exactly that. And so I could see that easily being used in much the same way. But no, I would be interested. Apparently, the only way to get one of those is to order them straight from Sapphire.
Says.
And apparently to order them in quantity.
Yeah, it definitely has to be for a company.
Yeah, I think... No, I think that would be something interesting to toy with, but I don't know how you'd go about getting one, just a single unit to look at.
So if companies could replace their either big, huge tower computers or even, I guess, like Walmarts and other places, replacing their built-in, actually, they have computers sitting on top of their registers. So yeah, they can replace their big, huge towers or whatever tower they have with these little small form factor computers and probably do the same thing or better than what they use now. Because I know restaurants use the Square. I think it's the Square monitor and register computer, where it has a built-in screen and it has a stand and then it has a card reader side to it. That's been pretty cool to see in the stores.
Right. I've even seen, there was back in my hometown, which is a rural town in the middle of nowhere. There's a restaurant there that if you want to do credit or debit transactions, they just have a phone hooked up with a Square reader there on a stand, and you just run it through the reader.
Yeah.
It's janky, but it works. So for that kind of you don't need a whole lot of horsepower for that kind of point of sale device.
Yeah.
Your average smartphone is actually overkill for that situation.
Oh yeah. The cool thing, side note, the cool thing about the Square adapter for your phone is you can use your finger to sign your name. You don't have to use a pen. I kind of like a pen better because you can get better precision versus trying to figure it out how to do it on the phone. But it is cool technology. I like that. It's cool technology. It's innovative, and evolution of the technology over time.
Yep. And actually, speaking of evolution of a technology, we got some confirmation about something that we originally talked about a couple of weeks ago, and that was Ryzen's Threadripper 2 CPUs. Apparently, someone at WCCF Tech, talking to one of their inside sources, found that, or had confirmation that the Ryzen Threadripper is going to consist of the 2990X with 32 cores and the 2950X with 24 cores, and that those will be launching on August 13th.
That's crazy.
Alongside brand new X399 motherboards from the likes of MSI and Gigabyte that will have BIOSes ready to accept the new second generation Threadrippers right off the bat.
I can't really imagine 32 cores, 64 threads.
Yeah, 30 cores. I mean, I've seen I remember when I thought it was insane to see a server with 32 cores and 64 threads.
Yeah.
Back just a few years ago. But now the idea that you can get that in a single CPU socket on a workstation class motherboard is just kind of trippy.
Yeah, because servers used to have, I think some server boards had 2 CPUs.
Some were even quad socket.
Oh, wow.
I remember looking once upon a time at an old G34 board, which used AMD Opteron series processors. It was a quad socket board, and the highest end CPUs you could get at that time were 8 cores. And so the idea that you could have 32 cores on a single motherboard was insane at the time. This was like 2009, 2010. And so now to see that in a single socket on a motherboard, it just blows my mind.
Yeah. I don't know if you could even have that many programs. I mean, you can have that many programs running. I think you can have, I wonder if you can have 32 programs running at the same time. If they're single core, single threaded, then you can.
Yeah. And remember, they're SMT enabled. So technically you can have up to 64 processes running at the same time.
That's insane. How many monitors would you have to have 64? Because you could, with Windows 10, you could have 4 windows or whatever in the
4 monitors
quadrants.
tiled.
Yeah, in the quadrants, in the 4 quadrants of a monitor. So what are how many?
Well,
32 monitors or something?
I don't know about that, but I know I did have a friend of mine who he was doing some testing, and this was just with when the first gen Ryzen 1800X came out. He did some testing where he had a 4K monitor, so he took 4 windows and made them 1080p a piece, put one in each corner of this 4K monitor, had a video rendering to 1080p, Mass Effect Andromeda playing in one corner, a web browser, and some other program running at the same time. I think he may have been streaming some of his gameplay just as a test, and no issues. It took it like a champ. And so you want something I found really funny though. Have you played Deus Ex: Mankind Divided?
Yes.
Okay. In one of the early scenes, if you look really carefully at one of the computers, this is set in 2028.
Mm-hmm.
It mentions that one of the computers there, the computer you're using, has 32 active cores.
Oh, wow.
And it's 2028. So apparently, when the developers for Deus Ex: Mankind Divided were developing the game, they were not taking into account Threadripper.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's one thing I love about sci-fi is sci-fi eventually becomes reality.
Ain't that the truth? But yeah, so we do have some confirmation. Threadripper 2, 2990X. It is coming out, and it's supposed to be launching on August the 13th. You're going to need something to cool that beast with. Thankfully, Deepcool has you covered. Their GamerStorm brand is launching the Phryzen. Yes, that's the actual name they chose. Phryzen TR4 cooler for $89.99.
No, I guess they don't really understand when you say Phryzen. To me, that sounds like I'm going to fry my CPU.
Yeah, hold on. Let me get this picture up for our audience. so they can see what we're talking about here. So yes, this is the Frizen. You'll notice it has the deep cool. It has 6 heat pipes. It has the new fans from Deep Cool. And so this is from their Gamer Storm line.
It looks really good. I like it.
Yeah, the block offers full coverage for the TR4 socket, but it'll also work with AM4 mainstream sockets as well.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So I wonder if it's better, since it's a taller block, if it'll be better cooling for a Ryzen non-Threadripper.
Don't really know, but given that it has 6 heat pipes, that certainly can't hurt.
Yeah. That would fit, like, it would be, like, this is a bad example. So here's a 2.5-inch hard drive. It seems like it would, if you put it on a regular Ryzen board, it'll be coming off kind of like having that on it.
Yeah.
So it'll be coming off on the sides.
But you'd have full coverage.
Yeah, well, you'd have more than full coverage. And that's a nice cooler. I like and of course, with everybody wanting RGB everything. It's got RGB in it.
Speaking of RGB, it can handle 16.7 million different colors with its RGB LEDs in 5 different effects, and features full compatibility with Asus Aura Sync, ASRock's Polychrome Sync, Gigabyte's RGB Fusion, and MSI's Mystic Light Sync.
Wow.
So if you have any of the motherboards from most of the major manufacturers, it'll sync up to whatever RGB software you're using.
And it comes at a nice price. It says MSRP in August of $89.99. That's a really nice price. I mean, it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more expensive for a tower cooler. Other tower coolers are $50 or so, but it's actually not a bad price. It's under $100.
Yeah, that $90 price bracket, you're going up against the likes, though, of the Noctuas, the NHD15s, and the fact that it's a single tower cooler instead of a double tower cooler like the Noctuas, it's really going to have to be efficient to be able to compete.
Right.
But, if you like the RGB and you like the Gamer Storm aesthetic, I've used some of the other deep cool coolers, more on the budget end. The GAMX 400, great little cheap cooler. Beats the heck out of pretty much all the stock coolers, except maybe some of the newer Wraith coolers from AMD. But still, the GAMX 400, excellent cooler. If this has similar performance for its price bracket, it might give Noctua a little run for its money. So we'll have to see.
It's got better fan colors than Noctua's.
Ouch. Someone called the burn ward.
I mean, that's about the only thing I can think of that only disadvantage to Noctua, because their coolers are really good at heat dissipation and cooling. Their fans are like top notch, but their fan colors is just, if you don't get the Redux, the all gray Redux, they're tan and brown. It's like, really? You wanted it to be different, and that's what you chose.
Well, to be fair, I've seen builds where they make that work.
Yeah.
PC World did their or not PC World, Maximum PC did their Dream PC a couple of years ago. And because they were using Noctua fans, they decided they were going to do a full beige build, the same color as those Noctua fans, using the Noctua brown as the accent color.
Wow.
And it actually turned out looking really nice. I mean, their whole thing was they were trying to build a high-end, water-cooled PC that looked like a classic beige box. So yeah, that whole thing is pretty interesting. And so, lost the article there. So yeah, that's pretty much all the AMD news we have for this week. There was a lot of buzz around Intel right after Computex, largely because of their debacle with their 28-core CPU. But there is a new announcement from Intel. Their upcoming 8th generation low-power series called Whiskey Lake apparently leaked out. The Core i7-8565U and its i5 counterpart, the 8265U. Apparently, these are supposed to be the follow-ups to the 8550U and the 8250U. But these are 15-watt chips on the Kaby that are to succeed the Kaby Lake R architecture. And apparently these will be built on Coffee Lake, but a low-power variant. They'll be on the 14-nanometer plus process. I stand corrected. These will still be the same Kaby Lake architecture, but they will be an improved variant that they are calling Whiskey Lake. The i7-8565U is a 4-core 8-thread part with 8 megabytes of L3 cache, 15-watt TDP, base clocks of 1.8 gigahertz base, and 4.5 gigahertz boost. Yes, you heard that correctly. Meanwhile, the i5-8265U is also 4 cores, 8 threads, and a 15-watt package, but it'll have a cut-down 6 megabytes of L3 cache and will feature base frequency of 1.6 gigahertz and a boost frequency of 3.9. In both cases, this is a 500 megahertz bump from the previous generation. And so
15 watts and up to 4.5 gigahertz. That's crazy.
Yeah, I figure that will be the single core boost speed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way you could maintain 4.5 gigahertz for any significant length of time on all the cores and still remain within a 15-watt TDP.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I got to hand it to Intel. What they're doing with their mobile processors is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
In that space. I mean, AMD has come out with their Ryzen 5 2500U and Ryzen 7 2700U. The problem is, unlike in the desktop space, Ryzen processors really haven't taken off in the mobile space.
Yeah.
I think part of that is, like, I know the model that the R5 2500U came out in for the HP, the processor itself was great, but the laptop it was put in was very meh. It was the Spectre X360, and it didn't have quite the cooling solution it needed. And the fact that they were using single channel RAM in the base configuration, which is a big no-no with Ryzen,
Yeah.
did not help things. But yeah, Intel, if this turns out to be with Whiskey Lake U, I think they're going to continue to largely dominate the notebook space.
Yeah.
Because no one can really put out a low power with high burst potential CPU like Intel can.
Mm-hmm. AMD did come out with their low-powered Ryzen Plus chips, the 2600E and I think the 2400E. But those, this base clock, of course, is cut down. They didn't really, the article I looked at didn't really say anything about the boost clock. But those, I think those are probably at the same level of the 1600 and 1400 base, or maybe a little bit less.
Would make sense.
Yeah. But they wouldn't, I don't think they overclock to even 3.8. They probably, I would think that the 1400E, I mean the 2400E would probably overclock to, if you want to overclock in that kind of CPU, would probably be up to, I think what I read, 3.4 boost. And probably 3.6 for the 2600E.
Yeah, for an E-series processor where their primary consideration is power consumption, that would make sense. Let's see.
And there's a 2700E also.
Right. I think those are desktop processors, though.
Right.
So let's see. What else we got on the agenda tonight? Almost forgot about this. So ASRock had part of their GPU roadmap leaked at the X Fastest Network event in Taipei, Taiwan last week, or earlier this week, excuse me. They showed a VGA card roadmap update for 2018 and the first quarter of 2019. And basically it shows their plans going forward are to release in, it looks like August of this year, late July, early August, their Phantom Gaming X Radeon RX Vega cards, as well as their new Mech 2 series of Radeon RX 500 series cards. The Mech or MK2s apparently are going to feature a slightly different layout from the original 500 series, with 2 display ports, 2 HDMIs, and a DVI port, whereas the original RX 580 shipped with 3 display ports, an HDMI, and a DVI port. Beyond that, they also talked about that they're going to continue with the RX 500 series through at least February of next year. Now that's important because early rumors about the RX 600 series put them coming out around the beginning of March in 2019.
That'll definitely be interesting. It also looks like with this lineup, they have 2 mining cards, which is kind of interesting because mining is almost dead. Bitcoin is down to $6,000 a coin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. Ethereum being the video card mining coin. Also, those have taken a plummet. Um, so it's interesting to have mining cards. It doesn't look like they're specifically mining, but or I guess they are specifically mining. One is single fan and one is dual fan. But it seems to be late in the game to do mining cards. And that doesn't even guarantee that if there is some kind of a mining craze to build back up, that people will buy the mining specific cards instead of the more gaming centric cards like they did with the NVIDIA, the 10 series, and the previous RX cards.
Right, because that was the big issue with the mining craze, was people were buying up the gaming cards, even though the mining cards existed, because they knew that when the mining boom finally went bust, they could flip the gaming cards for more money.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that why NVIDIA isn't that why the Chinese company or Taiwanese company sent back like a bunch of GPUs? Or is that a different reason?
That's largely the reason, was they overestimated the mining boom, and NVIDIA did indeed have to take back a large stockpile of GPUs. That's part of the reason we have not seen a successor to the 10 series yet, is they're trying to sell off what they have left of them before they introduce,
right,
whether it's going to be the 1100 series or the 2000 series of GPUs.
Mm-hmm. My bet is on the 1100 series because that makes more sense with the naming scheme, going from like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 versus starting at 20. But they could start in 20 and do 20, 21, 20, 22, whatever.
Yeah, I remember the last time NVIDIA went for the thousands naming scheme. They started with the MX 4000, and then there was the FX 5000 series. Then you had the 6000 series, 7000s.
Yeah.
What have you. I mean, technically NVIDIA's never had either an 1100 or a 2000 series of cards in the past, so we don't know how they'll decide to market those. But there's some indication that perhaps they're going to go with the 2000 series, because WCCF Tech, reporting from one of their sources in the Chinese semiconductor scene, Tum Apsiak, reported finding an entry in the Ashes of the Singularity benchmark database, which I have a link for. I'll drop that in here. That lists a GTX, NVIDIA GTX 2080 Ti special supply for GSS. Benchmarked on a Core i7-7700K CPU. The benchmark was posted by user Nagato, with no playtime in the game itself, indicating he's likely more of a tester than a gamer. Of course, we've seen these kind of benchmarks kind of faked before, but the fact that it's marked as special supply for GSS is interesting. GSS is the abbreviation for Gru's Sparse Solver, which is a sparse direct solver that runs CPU and GPU compute simultaneously. And so this could have been a researcher, perhaps, working with one of the unreleased products prior to it making to the market. Gru's Sparse Solver is a compute product produced by Grusoft. Basically, it's designed to solve what are called sparse linear systems and is used for high-end compute. So if this is indeed the case, the thing is, this contradicts some of what we've already heard about the upcoming GeForce GPUs. Most of the rumors we've heard, like you said, indicate a GeForce 11 series rather than a GeForce 20 series. Considering that Lenovo confirmed the GTX 1160 for their Lenovo Legion Y530 laptops.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, the produced results from this graphics card, whatever it is, are very, very different from any of the current products on the market. One of the famous ways that you can fool a benchmark like this is to alter the device ID of an already existing product.
Yep.
But the performance numbers that are produced here don't match the GTX 1070, 1070 Ti, 1080, 1080 Ti, or even any of the current Titan cards. We do know that, in theory, the high-end PCB for next-generation cards is supposed to be sporting up to 12 gigabytes of GDDR6 VRAM on a 384-bit bus.
Wow.
But so the question is this legit benchmark? And so I don't know what to think about it, honestly. I mean, there's enough things there that make me just kind of pause and scratch my head and say, is this really believable? On the other hand, the fact that it doesn't easily match any of the products that are currently out on the market, and the fact that it says it is specified as special supply for GSS, indicating that someone could be using this ahead of actual release to test how it works for compute performance, is also entirely possible. And their source here, TuneOpsiac, has been reliable in the past. He was the one who leaked the information about the Whiskey Lake CPUs that we talked about earlier, and also the one who contributed to the information we got about the early GTX 1100 series. So I'm not sure what to do with that. I'd say take it with a grain of salt, just like you would just about anything pre-release, and let the chips fall where they may. All right. Looks like we've got one more thing on the agenda here, and this is related to those next-generation graphics cards. So we're getting this from an article from PC Games In, but it originally comes from a report from DigiTimes. Apparently, with the falling demand for graphics card, industry sources have indicated that NVIDIA has stockpiled roughly 1 million unreleased GPUs all ready to go. But this, combined with the reports of NVIDIA receiving back over 300,000 GPUs from an unnamed Taiwanese graphics card manufacturer, which the fact that it's an unnamed Taiwanese graphics card manufacturer almost certainly means it's either Asus, gigabyte or MSI, indicates that there's been some reports that, oh no, there's not going to be any further price drops before the next generation comes out. But if NVIDIA really is sitting on stock of over 1 million GPUs that they need to clear out, I can't help but think they're going to do something to try and get rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Just put them all on sale.
And, well, NVIDIA in the past has done the rebrand thing where they'll, take a card and rebrand it time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
As a former owner of a 9800 GT, I knew fully well that that was an 8800 GT, that it had a new cooler slapped on it. And watched as they took that same GPU and made it the GTS 250.
I hope they don't make the 20 series the rebrand of the 10 series, because we have a bunch of cars we need to get rid of.
Or no, you know what? Knowing NVIDIA, what they would do, rebrand the 10 series as the 11 series, and then make the new high-end ones the 20 series.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
I could totally see them doing that.
Rebranding, does that change the core clock and boost clock, or is it just like renaming it?
Well, it depends. When AMD did their rebrand of the RX 400 into the RX 500 series, they did bump the clocks and they did change the memory timings, so that you did see around a 10 to 15% increase. But if you look at the thermals of, say, an RX 580 compared to an RX 480, it's pretty obvious that they basically cranked the clocks as high as they could go on that architecture.
I remember hearing about the 7870, which I have one of, was rebranded as the, I think it's either the R9 270 or R9 280. It's like,
yeah,
interesting.
The 7870 became the R9 270X. The 7850 became the R9 270. And also became the R9 370 and 370X.
Wow.
But yeah, the Radeon HD 7970 became the R9 280X. But that was dropped in the 300 series. What had previously been the R9 285 became the new R9 380. I had a friend who had the R9 285 in its ITX variant. Fun little card. Didn't quite get the due it should have. But it was a solid 1080p entry-level 1440p card. It just it had so much less performance than the R9 390 and was relatively close in price after the Bitcoin mining craze died the first time. The market got flooded with a bunch of used R9 290s and 390s, and so it was just cheaper to get a used R9 290 or 390 than to get the R9 380. And considering that the R9 390 and 390X have roughly similar performance to an RX 480, they just use about 100 watts more power. I mean, if you're not concerned about power consumption, the R9 290 series and 390 series are still excellent GPUs.
Did they ever make a 390X2 like they did the 295X2?
No, they pretty much left the 295X2 alone after producing it for the 200 series. I mean, it was very much a niche product to begin with.
Yeah. It was an interesting concept.
Oh yeah, it was. It was a fascinating product. It's just it was limited by the fact that each GPU only had access to 4 gigs of VRAM.
Mm.
And because they were cross-fired on the board, that meant that it was 4 gigs symmetrical. So even though there was 8 gigabytes total, each GPU only was able to handle up to 4 gigabytes worth of data.
Mm. And you have to figure out where to put the 2 liquid cooler, 120 millimeter liquid cooler fan and radiator in your case.
Yeah, and if you were using a CPU liquid cooler and that device, it made cable management and pipe management interesting.
Yeah,
Shall we say?
Because you could put one of the 120s in the front and then one of the 120s for the exhaust. And then if you have a case that has the 2 fan slots in the top, you could have a 240 for the CPU. So you have it covered. But if you had limited space for fans, it's like, where do I put these? And I don't know. I haven't really seen any bottom-mounted. Actually, there's only one case that I know of has a bottom-mounted fan slots. I forgot what that was. That special one that had the flow meter in it. It was like $80 or $90. I forgot what brand that was, but it was a really interesting case that had the power supply in the front hanging down from the top, and then it has 2 slots for fans in the bottom.
I know the case you're talking about, but I do not remember the name of it.
So
seems like Thermaltake may have done something like that, but
was that deep cool? Because it came with a liquid cooler, 120 liquid cooler built in.
Oh, was that the Baron case?
I think, yeah. So, yep, it was Baron case.
Yeah, I've seen builds in that one. That one can be very nice looking, but you had to be really careful with the cable management, if I remember right.
Yeah. And I would rather have slightly speaking on this or a related topic, I would rather have a 240 rad for the CPU than a 120. That's just me.
Yeah, especially if you're going to be going with a high-end CPU.
Yeah.
120 will do, but with the 120 closed-loop liquid cooler, you're going to see similar performance to a mid-range $50-ish air cooler. If you're really wanting to see lower temperatures and better thermal performance, as well as better acoustic performance, you're going to want to go with a 240 or 280 millimeter rad.
Yeah.
You know, something like the Corsair H100i or 105, Corsair's X62, or Corsair's NZXT's Kraken X62.
Yep.
Cooler Master does have their 240L series, but they have thinner radiators than the competition.
Yeah.
Which is why they cost less, and you're not going to see comparable performance because thickness and the number of fins per inch matter when it comes to radiators.
Yeah, that's why there's a lot of like the custom liquid cooling rads are thicker, like 64 millimeter thick or even more.
Oh yeah, the really thick ones like that because you can run more pipes through the radiator.
Yeah, like the Thermaltake hardline kit has their radiator is 64 millimeter thick, and that's better for cooling. So what else do we have?
Well, we're almost to the end, but when we're recording this on the 11th, it's a few days until Amazon's Prime Day, which is going to be on Monday, July 16th. For those of you who don't know, Amazon Prime Day is basically a day for Amazon Prime customers where they can get steep discounts on all kinds of stuff. It's a big deal that Amazon tries to push every year, and there's usually pretty decent deals on a wide range of electronics, particularly on Amazon devices, of course. Amazon has already released some of their early deals for Prime Day. They've been try to psych it up a little bit. The Amazon Echo Show is $100 off for now through Prime Day. And so that brings it down from $229 to $129. They also have reduced prices on a number of Amazon Prime Video, DVDs, and Blu-rays, up to 50% off. Amazon Music Unlimited is now 4 months for 99 cents for new subscribers. Kindle Unlimited is 3 months for 99 cents for new subscribers. And Audible will get eligible members 3 months for $4.95 a month.
Those are really good deals.
And those are the ones that are live right now. Forbes has put together a list of predicted deals based on the deals from last year, mostly for Amazon Echo and Fire tablet devices, saving anywhere from $20 to $50, in some cases $60 on the device. They say, in particular, the Fire 7 tablet will probably see for $30. The Amazon Echo Dot for $25. The Fire HD 8 for $80. And the Fire TV Stick for $20. But those are predictions. Those are not official yet. They also had several discounts on HD TVs. Last year, these sold out really quickly, but they had 32-inch HD TVs for $75 and 40-inch HD TVs for $120. As well as, go ahead.
That's pretty crazy. $120 for a 40-inch HD TV. That's not 4K. That's probably the 1080p, but that's still really good.
Yeah. I was going to say, I have a 49-inch 4K TV that I purchased at a Black Friday deal from Target for, I believe at the time, it was $4.99.
Yeah, I got my 40-inch 4K, the previous TV, for like $400 on. It was online. I'm not sure if it was Cyber Monday or if it was Black Friday. I think it was probably Cyber Monday sale. But that was on Amazon, I believe. It might have been Newegg, actually. And that was a really good deal at the time. 40-inch 4K smart TV, Samsung, for $399, I think it was.
Yeah,
when normally they were like
the Samsung.
Yeah, they're normally like $450 or $499. It was a good deal.
Let's see. Other potential tech deals. We saw this last year. Xbox One X and PS4 Pro bundles for $50 off.
They may be a little bit more off. They may, well, those are the current gen, so they'll probably be $50 off, or maybe a little bit more. I would also think that they would have, yeah, because those are the top ones right now. So they'll probably come with game bundles. The PS4 might even come with a PSVR bundle. Oh, what I saw last year on Prime Day was Oculus Rift was, at the time, it was $5.99. Now it's jumped down to $3.99 in their price push to get more people to buy it.
Right.
They might have it down to $2.99, maybe either $50 off or $100 off. And I don't know what they would bundle it with now that it comes with the touch controllers, but I could definitely see them doing. Well, with Prime Day, it doesn't really do too much discount, not like Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So probably be like $50 off, or come with another sensor.
Well, according to Forbes, their data from the research website Best Black Friday shows historically that Prime Day has better prices for popular tech items compared to major sales holidays like Black Friday. In 2017, 76% of Prime Day prices beat their Black Friday equivalents, while 5.8% of them tied. In 2016, 77% of Prime Day prices beat Black Friday, while 12.9% of them tied. And in 2015, the first year that they did Prime Day, 64% of Prime Day prices beat Black Friday, with 9.1% tied. So think of this as an early potential possibility of if you want to do some early Christmas shopping, or you want to beat Black Friday prices.
Or you want to build a computer at cheap price.
Right. But if you can't wait for Prime Day, there is a deal running right now on Newegg. And it's actually a really good one if you have the money for it. We talked about earlier how ASRock was going to be debuting new models of their RX 580 graphics cards. Well, apparently, as part of the marketing push to get ready for those, they are selling their current generation Phantom Gaming X Radeon RX 580 8G model, which is their overclocked 8 GB model, for $299.99. Now, that's not a spectacular price for an RX 580 until you see what the special offer is. A free ASRock AB350 Pro motherboard with purchase. That's a $90 motherboard. So you are essentially getting for $300, you are getting a Radeon RX 580 8 GB graphics card for $210 and a $90 motherboard. Considering the MSRP on an RX 580, which they have not seen in over 18 months, is $249 for an 8 gig model. Getting it for $210 and a $90 motherboard is insane.
Yeah. The board is a ATX board.
Yes, it is an ATX board, and it is a B350. So it means any processor that you got with it, you would be able to fully overclock. And it's not the cheap B350 board either. It has 4 full DIMM slots instead of the 2 you find on the cheaper models. And it does have 2 PCIe slots, although as it is with all the B350 models, those are wired either 16 times 16 times 8. So the best you could run those would be by 8 by 8. if you're going to run multiple GPUs. But honestly, if you're running RX 580, as a person who is running dual RX 480s just because, unless you have a game that is specifically optimized for crossfire support, it's probably not worth it.
Yeah.
And I say that as someone who is doing it right now.
Just like not a lot of games, and I don't know how many games do, but not a lot of games support SLI for NVIDIA. Yeah. And for the thermals, why deal with why deal with two cards with the heat? Because the top card is pushing the heat down to the bottom card, and then the bottom card is, of course, pushing the heat down to the bottom of the case. But why deal with the thermals of two cards when you just have one? Unless you have enough fans.
Right, and that's what I'm doing with my setup. But no, I'm just thinking about with this deal, you could theoretically build a excellent mid-tier PC with this build, with this deal. You have the AB350 board, you have the RX 580 8 gig, get a Ryzen 5 2600 or 2600X for about $250. I get the 2600 for right around 200 is a better deal because it overclocks just the same. And get 16 gigs of RAM. Of course, that's going to cost you a little bit, probably around 120 bucks at least.
I'd probably do the 8 gig for right now, 2 sticks of 8 gig. Then you can fill them with 8 gig, 2 sticks of 4 gig later and make 16.
I'm fair. And, a 500 or 600 watt 80 plus bronze power supply, a cheap case, 120 or 256 gigabyte SSD, and a hard drive. You could put together a system probably for right around $750 with this bundle.
Yeah.
You could put down that the fact that it's saving you $90 from what would normally be about a $900 PC. You're saving almost $100 on what you choose to build. So yeah, that is an excellent tech deal. We will put a link to that down in the description. And in fact, we're going to try to include links to all the things we mentioned here on the cast. So just to make you aware. In the meantime, Hunter, got anything to add?
That ASRock 580 is really tempting for me to go up to. I'm gonna have to see if I can do that. So it is tempting. And I don't have an RX card. I'd definitely like to try it out, because the one thing that's great about the RX cards is FreeSync is so much cheaper than NVIDIA G-Sync.
This is very true.
It blows my mind how much money I would pay for a G-Sync monitor. And I really want to go up to 40p 144 hertz. A FreeSync monitor is like $279. A G-Sync monitor at 24-inch is either $380 or $399, and then 27 inches, 400 or 450 and above. Depends on which brand you get, but it's insane. It's double the price of FreeSync.
It's that proprietary module they use.
It is.
The proprietary module NVIDIA uses for G-Sync, although it does an amazing job of what it does, is expensive.
Yeah. And they don't have a they no longer have a kit that you can put into the 24-inch that one monitor that you could actually put into it yourself.
Right.
They stopped that a long time ago. Because I was thinking about doing that too, but I could never find a kit that I could buy.
Right.
That'd still be about the same price as that was a 24-inch monitor. That'd be the same price as a $450 to $499 model because the module was so expensive. I think the module was like either 180 or 150, and then the monitor was like 280 or 300. So it still wouldn't be. I wouldn't be saving anything, and I'd have to put the module in myself. So, anyways, it's tempting to go to AMD RX.
And the fact that you had the B350 board would mean making an upgrade to a Ryzen CPU would be fairly simple.
Yeah, I was thinking about the 2600.
Or even the 1600. The 1600 right now, I think, can be found for what, $170?
Yeah.
And that's a steal at that price.
Yep. And the power efficiency, there's a little bit more with the 2000 series, of course, but the clock speeds aren't really that different. With
right.
1600 and 2600. Only 200 megahertz difference. And the 180 at Newegg for 1600. And the stock cooler for the Wraith cooler is actually really good. I've seen a lot of videos on it, and it's actually on par with a low-cost aftermarket cooler.
Right.
So that's really impressive. That's one of the things that draws me to Ryzen CPU. I don't have to buy a cooler because it comes with a comparable enough, and you can overclock it. You can overclock it with the stock cooler. Just a little bit, but still.
Right.
It holds you over financially until you can get a better cooler if you want one for more overclocking. So maybe at some point I'll upgrade. I also want a little bit smaller, either ATX or micro ATX case. Probably since the motherboard is ATX, I want to get a little bit smaller ATX case because the Corsair 600T is great for space and everything, but what I'm trying to do is build a LAN box because I have a monthly LAN that I go to, and taking around this 600T is painful and annoying. It's like bringing over a full tower everywhere.
I understand. So have you considered, what solutions have you been considering for a LAN box?
I don't want to do a Ryzen APU because I want to have it to where it's, I mean, right now all I have is a 1080p monitor, but I was wanting to do a micro ATX case because then that would be not as big. It'd be smaller. And it's the nice sweet spot financially because mini ITX motherboard is like $180 for even Ryzen. And then getting either the 2600 or 2700 is going to be pricey. I mean, 2700 is going to be pricey. And getting a cooler or whatever. And it just has limited space. I still have my idea for the Dell Dell sleeper PC. So I was going to either do a X370, I think, an X370 mini ITX board in it, or a micro ATX B350 board. Because X470, it would be nice to have Wi-Fi with it if I don't do the Wi-Fi card. If I do the Wi-Fi card, I'll definitely have to go to a micro ATX board for the expansion slots.
Yeah.
It's just with a proprietary case, I don't know the dimensions and what it can handle, stuff like that. I don't really want to buy a board and have to send it back because it doesn't fit or doesn't fit comfortably, which I'm wondering if a micro ATX board will fit comfortably in that old Dell case. So I'll figure it.
That's yeah. I went in to do a LAN box a couple of years ago. I did mine in a BitPhoenix Prodigy case.
That's a really nice case.
Mine was the red version.
Okay.
And I was running a Core i5 6500 with 16 gigs of RAM and an RX 480.
Okay.
Did really well for that task. Wound up selling that motherboard to Bones, actually. One of the CFG, one of the big three of CFG.
Yep.
He's going to be using that, I think, perhaps in his truck PC. I don't know exactly. But yeah, I've been looking for kind of a replacement for it. I really liked that Prodigy case, and so I kind of wanted to rebuild in it again. But so far, I've not found a mini ITX solution I really like. That would really be an upgrade from the 6500 I had before.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of But I tell you what, if they would come out with a mini ITX board for Ryzen, something other. Don't get me wrong, the BioStar board that came out is excellent. It's just not really what I'm looking for.
Right.
I considered Gigabyte's AB350 Gaming In, which is the other mini ITX for Ryzen, but man, there's not enough selection.
Yeah, there's not.
Anyway.
And there's no X370 or X470 micro ATX boards, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, the whole thing. I really want to build like a secondary Ryzen PC just to use both as a LAN box and kind of to act as my living room PC.
Yeah. Well, there's that mini ITX case that has a handle on it at the top. Looks like a lunchbox.
The Corsair 380T?
No. Lee and Lee.
Oh, okay. I know the one you're talking about. I don't remember the exact name, but yeah, that's something to consider. Like I said, I still have the Prodigy case, though, and the fact that it has those rubber handles on it makes it really convenient for toting to a LAN party and whatnot.
So that was... So those were strong enough to grab a hold of and tote the computer around in?
Yeah, when fully loaded, they are, surprisingly.
Nice.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our articles for the evening. I really appreciate you all tuning in to watch us discuss tech once again here on TechForge. If you check the links down below, you will find links to all the articles we have discussed. Trying out a new service called OneTab. OneTab is a extension that you can get for the Chrome browser that lets you take a whole bunch of open tabs you have and condense them into a nice little web page that you can share with others, or that you can restore all of them to look at later. So we'll include the link to the OneTab down there that'll have links to all the articles we discussed in tonight's podcast. We'll also have links down below to some of the deals we discussed and the links for Amazon Prime Day. So also you'll find all of our social media links to Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, our Patreon as well, where you can find audio versions of the CFG podcast. I have to talk to Patrick about whether we're going to have an audio version of this podcast. I don't think so. Regardless, once again, thank you for watching. I've been Dynamo Ned.
And I've been Hunter.
And remember, humans, when life gets rough, Jesus loves you, and forge on.
Yep. Ditto.